Welcome back to Vulnerability Let's Talk. My name is Dr. Ayisha Zakia Jefferson, and I'm going to start off with an introduction again. I am a professor, a spiritual life coach, and a Black and Brown beauty activist. And I would kind of like to give a reminder of why I'm doing this series, Vulnerability Let's Talk. As many of you guys know, I'm a huge advocate when it comes to Black and Brown beauty. Which some people may think focuses a lot on the physical aesthetics, but it is definitely my belief that internal beauty far outweighs external beauty, and a big part of that is our healing. And so the reason why I have these topics is to help us unpack in multi-layers. And so I pray that you see the beauty and the importance in this, and that you are getting some confirmation, you're getting some clarity, you're getting some understanding about yourself and others, to help you along on your journey to be the highest version of yourself. And so today's topic is on shame and guilt. And oftentimes the topics come to me from personal experiences. I often feel like they're divine, so I feel like they're downloads from God. And then this particular topic today, somebody from my childhood, early childhood at that, actually sent me a suggestion for this topic. And so sent me the suggestion for the topic specifically dealing with guilt. But oftentimes people usually connect shame and guilt together, which is why I felt like it would be a great opportunity to unpack and talk about both. So as usual, we have three amazing guests. I should say that they're a part of this show continuously. We have Yolanda Stone, who is an amazing entrepreneur, life coach, and also works for the government. We have Tameka Renee, who is also, this is her first time visiting us, who is a spiritual life coach in her own right too, and a minister. I'll let her introduce herself. And then last we have Tara Smith, who will be on, and she is, I feel like she's a spiritual life coach, as well as a Reiki practitioner, a masseuse, but I'll let her introduce herself to you more because I'm only talking about one facet of her life. Sorry. So I have seen them on. Allow me to bring them in. Yolanda, you, and Tameka, I just invited you. Hey, beautiful ladies. Hey, beautiful.
Hey.
Hey, sunshine. Hey, sunshine.
Hey.
Hey, sunshine. All the sunshines.
Hello,
Hello.
How are
everyone.
you?
Hello.
Good.
Good. So Tara and Tameka, since it's you guys' first time on, I would like you to briefly introduce yourselves. I did a brief introduction, but I'll have you tell a little bit more about yourself just in case I missed anything. Tameka, I'll have you go first.
Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Tameka. Well, let me just put it out there. My name is Tameka Beatty, and I am a minister. And like Ayisha said, I am also a spiritual coach, and of many different facets. And my main purpose is to empower and impact women to live the best way that they are to live, to really fulfill life's assignment with joy and happiness, and really to know who they are. So, yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Tameka. And Tara, give us
Uh,
a little brief background about yourself.
okay. My name is Tara Smith. I am originally from Buffalo, New York, but now I'm in the Charlotte area. Um, I am not a life coach. It may
I
happen
think
one
you are,
day.
but go ahead. What say
I
you so
heard
that
your
people on
introduction
the know
earlier.
know
That's why
that?
I had to say it.
Yeah.
But right now, I feel like I'm a healer. So I do massage therapy and Reiki healing at this time.
All right. Thank you so much, Tara. And hey, Yolanda.
Hi, I don't have anything to add. You women look so beautiful today. I just want to give.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to jump right into it. Our topic, how do you define shame and guilt? And you don't have to give a full definition. We can all kind of piggyback off of one another. So just whatever you want to give from whatever angle, how do you define shame and guilt, or shame or guilt?
I feel like shame and guilt are the feelings you get when you know you're wrong.
Okay. All right. Shame and guilt are the feelings you get when you know you're wrong. Anybody else want to add on to that?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Tameka.
I agree that what Tara said, but also sometimes you can feel shamed by other people's projections or actions toward you, you know. And guilt definitely is like when you feel like you may have done something wrong, you know, or when you are overly insecure, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So piggybacking off of what's already been said. So it was different for me when I was like, oh wow, shame, okay, guilt. So guilt for me, it could be in any facet. I could feel guilty because I'm not giving my kids enough time. You know, guilty because I ate like 5 extra Oreos. So it kind of it varies. Guilty I didn't get something, you know, done at work. For me, shame, and just being transparent, when I first connected to shame, it was more so, I think what came up to me was like past sexual experiences that I may be shameful of. But that was the only thing, yeah, that, and then maybe like my childhood, like coming up, I was kind of ashamed that I didn't have like certain things growing up. So when I thought that, those are a couple of things that came up for shame. And for me, shame has more of a feeling like physical. It kind of manifests physical, like it would really kind of like break my body, versus guilt. And maybe I'm just so used to guilt, I don't know. But shame is more impactful.
Okay.
But I also feel like shame, and it kind of, when both of you were talking, it came to me a little differently. Shame is like what other people project onto us and the way we feel it, and guilt is more of our own internal feeling towards something.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
all
good.
right. Yeah. And I definitely think it's I feel like all the opinions are valid. I know when I think of shame, and I had to really think long and hard about this one. I feel like guilt for me is usually what I feel like I have inflicted on somebody else. Like if I feel like I've caused somebody else pain, guilt. Shame for me, so guilt is a mistake I made, but shame is more who I've made myself to believe who I am. So I think there's I think there's like a subtle difference there. Like I said, the mistake versus me saying this is who I am and like this is just the way it is. That's how I feel about shame. So yeah, I feel like everything that everyone has said is valid. So my next question is, what do you feel are the root causes? And again, if we're looking at these two different, and I feel like maybe guilt can lead to shame too if it's not dealt with. Like if you feel like you made a mistake with someone, like say somebody has cheated, right? And then that there's guilt on cheating, but the shame may be I am a cheater. And this is just who I am. This is who I'm going to be the rest of my life. So that's why I feel like one can turn into the other, like it can worsen. So I kind of feel like shame is like the worser end of guilt if it's not dealt with. But okay, what do you feel are the root causes of guilt and shame? Like, do you feel like this is a learned behavior?
For me, I definitely feel like it's a learned behavior. The media, like social media, like the things that were not there when I was growing up. If I grew up today as a kid, oh my goodness, I think that defines it. And then our environment growing up, are some of the root causes that that I've experienced.
Okay.
I think I don't know that it's a learned behavior. I think sometimes it can be an instant feeling, because when I watch my grandchildren, like my granddaughter, she might be ashamed of something, and we've not taught her how to do that. Like, she's very, at only 3 years old, she's very independent, and she's very boisterous, and she communicates, she articulates very well. But I can tell, like, when I saw the questions today, I immediately thought about her, because I'm like, how did she learn that? You know, where did that come from? So I think it's a human feeling, but it necessarily is not always a good feeling, unless you've done something where you feel bad because you're guilty, you know. So I agree with what Yolanda said, but it could be different ways. Yeah.
Okay.
For me, I feel like shame is whenever I think about something that I'm ashamed of or feel feeling of shame, it's always based on someone else's perception or what someone else will think of it or how I'll be viewed in someone else's eyes. So shame, I feel like, is more environmental. Just like if you had, people who walk around naked, they won't be ashamed if that's their culture and their environment, versus people who've always been told to cover themselves up and then they're exposed. Then they would be ashamed. But guilt, I feel like, is more internal to you, to when you have your own moral compass and when you go against that. That's when guilt takes over.
Yeah. I ditto to that too, because I do feel like guilt comes up when you're not meeting who you think you should be. So we have like a higher sense of ourselves. We know who we are, and then when we step out of that, or we exhibit a characteristic that is unlike that higher self, I feel like that's where guilt comes in. Like, if I get upset and I start cussing somebody out, now naturally I don't just cuss people out, right? But there are moments where I feel like it has to come through. But later on, I do feel guilty about it, because that did not match me being my higher self, with who I know I should be. So, yeah, that. But I'm trying to see, did I even answer the question? What does that look like? Yeah, I would say that that's what it looks like. I think that would probably be an example of it. I also feel like shame looks like hiding too, because I think for the same thing that you guys have just said, if it is something, an opinion that you have absorbed or chosen to believe, and if you don't meet that, then that's where shame comes in, and then it may cause you to hide. So yeah, hope that made sense. But that's the way that I look. If I wanted to give a visual of it, that's what I would say about shame and guilt. The next question: when you feel that, did anybody else want to say something? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I did. Sorry. So I want to add something to
No, don't say sorry. Not at all. I want this.
Your granddaughter picking it up, it may not be learned. And I was like, oh yeah. I was thinking about Ayisha. Remember that time you gave the presentation where we have 3 generations at one time. So if I'm pregnant, so when you said that, Miss Tameka, I was just like, oh yeah, it could have been true. Yeah. So I was like, oh wow, yeah, you're right. And then it brought me back to memories where Jordan does things that he hasn't seen me do, but it's just like when I was growing up as a child. And I'm like, oh, how did he learn that? He hasn't seen that. So yeah, so thank you for that. That was
And
my gosh,
let me piggyback, because when you gave us the topic immediately, so that I'm praying that this will help me, because immediately I went to childhood trauma. I was shamed by my family members, cousins, aunts, uncles, when I was little, for different reasons that I could not control.
Yeah.
And it was from the time that I could walk. Like, I don't remember myself defending myself until my late teenage years. But the family has always told me, extended family members, that I would defend myself, and I was very outspoken, and I was determined to, be heard. But I don't remember that. I remember the shame and the teasing and the guilt that they made me feel for things that I had no control over.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
No, good stuff. I love that you brought that up, Yolanda, because I didn't even think about shame in that instance, where it could be intergenerational cellular trauma that has been passed on. So again, this is why I say these topics and unpacking are extremely important, because, even if it is not, even if we haven't given birth, we are still passing on energy to family members around. I mean, as a mother and as a father, of course, but even if you haven't, like myself, given birth, we still have a responsibility to deal with our stuff, because we can pass it on, And so that shame or guilt that children have no idea about, that baby in the womb has no idea about, that niece and nephew who come and visit you, or the godchild that comes and visits you, that they don't know anything about, but they feel it like permeating somehow. That's our stuff passing on. And if we don't, then we give permission for the other generations to keep passing it on. So yeah, cellular memory, epigenetics, whatever you want to call it, is really, really important to be dealt with. And because we are aware, just like Yolanda just bringing this up, because we have a sense of awareness about it, we have to do something about it, no matter how painful it is, no matter how draining it is. For some reason, we were given the awareness. The baton was given to us, so we have to do something. We have to have the conversations. Some of us have to be the black sheep. You know what I'm saying? But it is important to talk about it and to deal with it. So when you feel you have made a mistake, do you tend to feel shame or guilt?
Oh yeah.
Do you feel both, or do you feel like one? Do you tend to feel guilt, or do you tend to feel shame? Because
I think it's
guilt is the mistake. This, if I'm using my definition, so I'm kind of bogarting here. I apologize if it's offensive to anyone, but guilt is a mistake that you feel like you've inflicted on someone. Shame is saying, this is who I am. So what do you tend to feel?
I feel more guilt than shame, because I feel like shame has a lot to do with intention too. So if I know my intentions are good, then I don't have as much shame behind it, because like I said, for me, shame is more the projection of what other people are feeling, seeing, thinking. So if I'm secure on what I did and how I feel about it, I don't really have the shame behind it. It might be uncomfortable, but I wouldn't use the word shame. Guilt, because it has to do with someone else and their feelings being hurt. I feel like it's a mistake that has affected someone else, and I've hurt them. That hurts me, and that's the guilt that I feel. So when I've made, I don't even say mistake, because the thing that comes to mind for me is I feel guilty about leaving home. So I came down from Buffalo when I was like 19. So I, to this day, still feel guilty, because my family is still there, and I'm not there as much as I want to be there for my family. And I have a younger sister, and I feel like she's always doing everything for the family, and everything falls on her shoulders because I'm not physically there. I try my best, but there's a guilt for not being there. I'm not ashamed, because I'm happy that I left and I like the life that I've made, but there is still guilt.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Anybody want to add on to that? When you feel like you have made a mistake, do you tend to feel guilt or shame?
I think for me, it's where I am on my journey. So let's go back to where you said, if, you know, if I've cussed you out, it's because you earned that. And there is no shame and no guilt in that. Because I try, our wonderful coach, Jonathan, he shared with me, he said, you're a very fair person. And anybody who knows me knows that I am. So I won't feel guilty about it. But if something I did and didn't realize I did it, then I can feel, then some guilt may come. And then I try not to be ashamed to apologize, So I I do my best as best as I can do and be, to not carry a lot of guilt, to get rid of it, because the guilt brings stress, and that stress can turn into sickness of some type of form, Yeah. So I guess it depends on where you are and what the situation is. If you're just a person who's always like, you see that one person who doesn't want to change, who doesn't want to grow, who doesn't want to heal, and they're always apologetic because they've done something crazy, and then they feel shameful because they know better, but they're, as my old pastor would say, they're flesh. They just want to get what they want out instead of growing up and having, I guess, self-control. So I guess it depends on where you are in your walk, and what you're doing at that moment.
Okay. Anybody else want to add on?
Let me see. So for shame, I don't experience that a lot, because the more and more I work on myself in my spiritual journey, I don't care a lot about what others think or say about me. If it's somebody close, right, it's a little different. So I don't experience shame a lot at all, and I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think about
That's
that.
Good. Yeah.
As far as guilt, I think for the most part, it's on me. I feel guilty the most dealing with myself. If I should have did something to better myself or better decisions I could be making, is mostly the guilt is towards me. And not a lot dealing with how I make others feel. Like if I make other people feel a certain type of way, I may feel bad about it for a second, but then I try to remedy the situation to make sure I don't allow them to feel a certain way, or I don't impact them to feel a certain way. But yeah, most of my guilty is towards me.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that definitely comes from like a really good healed place, for the shame not to be there. Because I think a lot more people feel shame than they think they do, but they cover it up. Sometimes I think people cover it up with like numbing themselves by like purchasing things, or looking a certain way, or associating themselves with certain people, but having to go home and deal with yourself is like a totally different thing. And sometimes those things may be the cover up for the shame. So just personal opinion there. Yeah, I would say for myself, I think it's ebbs and flows for me. I've had moments where I feel guilty, but there's periods in my life where I can look back and I can see where I've like allowed shame to seep in. And then there was like a shame period, in my life. And then I had to deal with that. So I try to grasp it at guilt. You know what I'm saying? I try to get a handle of it there, but sometimes it does form into something bigger. So it's kind of like up and down, but I feel like now that I know different, I don't quite let it get to shame. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. But there was a point in my life where I did allow it to go to shame way faster than I would. Now it's kind of like, oh, stop, what's happening, So this is one question that's not going to be on the list. I just thought about something. Do you think that guilt can be useful sometimes?
Cool. Yeah.
Do you think that guilt can be useful? Okay, so tell me, how do you? It just popped up in my head. I was like, can guilt actually be useful?
I think it when you, like Yolanda was saying, it's about a maturity thing. So if you've done something and you're guilty of, and you feel guilty for it, it will help you to change and not do that again. If you really want to, if you
Yep.
really, you know, so many people are on this journey of healing, and some are truly doing it, but then you have those who aren't. So it's about, okay, will that guilt help me to become a better person? Will it help me not to behave in that manner anymore? You know, it's all about where you are on your level of, or your journey of healing. You know, definitely. I see it as it could be very, very useful, but it also, if you flip that, it can be bad as well if you're what's very insecure and you're not, you are battered or abused, and then you're led to feel guilty about anything that you may do. So
Yeah.
it can work for good or for bad, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure I acknowledge some comments. So I had Radio the Ruler who said, hello, Queens. And we have Tony's who said, to you, Yolanda, that's awesome to not feel any shame. And then Elegance and Focus Magazine said, gaslighting. So, yeah, yeah. We know gaslighting is manipulation.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Tara? Were you about to say something?
I feel like guilt can be your driver to improvement. So either improving yourself, improving relationships, improving anything that you know, feel like wasn't done correctly. So it can be that driver. You have that guilt, that's your driving force.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
guilt can almost be, go ahead, Yolanda. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm not proud of it, but I will use guilt to kind of get my way in certain things, especially in a relationship. And also listening to everybody else speak, I'm like, darn, I think I've been trying to shame to a certain degree too to get a desired outcome. I love doing, and I'm like, yeah, I got to work on that. I'm connecting the dots now, and I'm like, oh wow, I got to change that behavior because that's not good. Yeah. So just get transparent.
Yeah.
Oh wow, using. I'm like, have I done it? I'm probably sure I have. I hope I didn't do it intentionally, but
Yolanda, don't feel bad. I do it all the time.
Yolanda, you can open up a whole nother thing, using it to get your way. Ooh, girl. Okay, let me unpack that one. That was good. That was good, and you would be the one to admit it.
Yeah. But I didn't even think about it like that, but that's real.
It is very real. It is.
Yeah.
It's absolutely real. It says, I think all women have all women have it, honestly. Probably, shoot. Especially you say you
it works. Listen, if it works, it
works.
Wow.
The pretty card. Elegance and Focus magazine said the pretty card. Yeah. Women who have birthed children to say, like, I did it. Yeah. There's different ways that we use. You haven't experienced this. You don't have this. You don't have. Yeah. I can. Woo! Honey.
Wow.
Ooh, I'm so glad he's in a different room.
Pushing guilt.
Yep.
Gender norms and okay, yeah, that was good, Yolanda. But yes, I do think guilt can be a potential moral compass, you know, kind of embodying everything that you guys already said. When you think back and you're like, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I could do this different next time. So yeah. So how do you think guilt or shame, we've already touched on this, I just want to make it explicit. How do you feel guilt or shame shows up in childhood? Specifically thinking about you or children.
They isolate. I used to isolate myself or be quiet, you know, or act out. Yep.
Okay.
When I was shamed or made to feel guilty about something.
Mm.
Um, it was one of those three: either isolate myself, or act out, or just shut down completely. And I've done it as an adult too. I have, So
Yeah.
when Yolanda said she doesn't deal with shame, it is because, and like I said, anybody who knows me knows I've gotten to a place. It took a long time for me to get here, but I've gotten to a
Mhm.
place where I don't care what anybody thinks. I mean, of course you care to a certain degree. You don't want to go outside with, your hair standing all over your head, or, smelling or something like that. But I have my own style. I have my own mind. So that took a lot of work. But as a child, I did it a lot because I
Okay.
grew up in a very abusive home. So yeah.
Okay. So how else do you think? And this could be the child's reaction or things that people do to cause a child to feel guilt or shame. So any direction you guys want to go in on that.
Like for me as growing up, like we didn't have like running water, like certain things in the house. So I was always shameful of that. And I brought that with me to my adulthood by overcompensating, overworking, always trying
Mm.
to prove myself to be in a position where I would not be in that position again, and my kids will not be in that position. So that's kind of how I carried it over to my
Okay.
adult.
All right.
Same. It's funny Yolanda says that, but like when we didn't have something, you kind of regress from your friends. Like you don't want anybody to come over because you don't want them to see,
Oh.
or so you kind of, like isolate, like Tameka said. But now in my adult life, like I remember not having things or running out of something, didn't have the money to get within like necessities. So now like my cabinets are full. If we don't have one and one on deck,
Yep.
we ran out already.
Yep.
And it's like trauma response.
Yeah.
But it was shameful to not have certain things. And again, I put that on other people because other people are like, you don't have this? Yeah,
Yeah.
your license on? Why can't I call you? Your telephone on? Y'all have no
Yeah.
telephone? Yeah. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. That's real interesting too, because you guys were making me think about other things. One of the first things that came to mind for me was things that I think sometimes people will do to inflict like guilt or shame onto a child. Like I've been in areas where I've seen like a 4-year-old who might have been considered to be a little bit overweight. And if the child is reaching for candy and then the parent or family member or somebody is like, don't touch that, you don't need to be eating that. Then the child, you can see a difference in the child is
Yeah.
just being a child. The child is doing what other people are doing. But you singled out that child to make, him or her feel guilt, which may turn into shame later. Or maybe a child has something on that's like, sometimes we see kids that are eccentric that might wear rain boots to school on a day where it's not rainy, and pajama pants, and then like another colorful non-matching top. And there could be other adults. I remember working at a daycare, like, oh, what does this child have on? The child hears it, but the child chose that outfit and was very proud of that outfit. And instead of the child being celebrated in that moment, who knows what that child could be, some artistic, fashionista or whatever. But that child was like guilt or shame was placed on that child in that moment. And then of course, like I said, not having things, and then other people inflicting that on them. So that's the way that I could see it, like other people saying. So again, we have to be, very intentional about the messages that we give, that it's not stuff that we're saying it to ourselves and then we're inflicting it on the child. But I was just thinking about something even in my own experience, but now I can't think about it from a child. This is what it was. I know growing up a huge portion of my life, we only had one bedroom, and me, my mom, my sister, like we slept in the same bed, and I can remember not thinking anything about it until somebody came over and visited and it was like, where's your room? And I'm like, this is my room. Well, where's your mom sleep? And again, I didn't think it. I'm like, it's clean. It's a comfortable bed. It's a comfortable home. I never thought about it until somebody signaled it out to me. And I was like, oh, I guess I don't have my own room. You know what I'm saying? Like, but up to that point, I had never thought about it, you know? And then I felt like, and I'm not sure exactly how I exhibited, but I'm sure I probably put some pressure on my mom, you know, at that point about getting my own room, having my own space, that type of thing. But I didn't miss it until somebody said it to me. Never felt never even thought about it. Not one time. And I can literally pinpoint that experience, that age, everything, when that occurred. So, people who have scars, you know, in certain places where they're made to feel shame. I've had experiences like that where I've witnessed it, and the person may not have had a problem with like physical things, and then somebody says something about it and it changes the trajectory of how this person visualizes him or herself, which starts in childhood. So, you know, being certain weight sizes, and I always bring that up because that's my shit, but being a certain size when we know that's a facade now, you know? I mean, if your blood levels are good, you know, if you are in shape, it doesn't, there's not a size to that thing. But that's not what I've been told. So, you know, for a long time, I'm still having to unlearn those messages, but all those things starting in childhood too. And I know I often bring up gender norms too, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because I have like students who come in who, you know, are women, but sometimes they wear clothes that are perceived to be more masculine, or just the opposite. And they may be, you know, homosexual or bisexual. Sometimes they're not. That's just a choice. And they are guilted and shamed. And I know this to be an issue because they write about it in their journals a lot. And so I just feel like I got to bring those things up as well, where we're inflicting this stuff. And then here they are torn up internally about it, and they're only being themselves, you know? Right. So, yeah. Did anybody have anything to say? I went on a tangent.
Really quickly, you made me think of Jordan. Jordan ordered off of Amazon, and he ordered these skate shoes. They were white, and they had butterflies on the back and something else, right? And I was like, Jordan, you ordered some girl shoes. And he said, I don't care. I like them. I said, but you're going to marry with your cousin, so you sure you want to take these? How about take some more shoes? And this is me. He said, no, I don't care what they think, mommy. I said, you sure?
Very good, Jordan.
Yes,
I didn't
very good,
get
Jordan.
picked on, right? So this is me being overprotective. I don't want nobody picking on my son. And so we went to Maryland, and he was wearing his shoes like he did not care what anybody said. He could care less. And I was like, ow. But even with his clothes, sometimes he is.
We can't.
Oh, you went out on us. Okay.
Sorry. Sometimes he'll say that he likes different colors that maybe, you know, we perceive as a girl color. And I'm like, well, he was like, I don't care what nobody says.
That's right, Jordan. That's right.
So that's something
I love Jordan.
Get over. I wanted to protect him so he wouldn't get picked on. So now I'm like, okay, so he's teaching me, and I'm learning from him how just like, okay, whatever. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, very good. And then who says that butterflies are for girls? I mean, what?
Right.
If the butterfly in the field said that they only gravitate to women, you know what I'm saying? We all get happy when we see butterflies.
Yeah, you know,
exactly.
I have I don't know if Yolanda knows, but I have a Jordan too. Yeah. And my Jordan, he's grown now. But when he was in high school, my son has special needs, and you can't tell by looking at him. But he loves to be in the front of people. He's very introverted, but he loves to perform. He likes to sing and he likes to dance and all that other stuff. And when he was in, I think it was early high school or something, they were having a talent show, and he wasn't doing it the best at that time. And I was like, they're gonna laugh at you, Jordan. They're gonna laugh at you. Don't. He said, I don't care. I don't care. So I had to deal. And I really believe that I still projected my stuff on him, but he continued to, remember, that's the unhealed version, but he continued to do it, and he did a talent show, and they voted him Mr. Congeniality.
Wow.
So you,
Yes.
yes, they are.
Yes.
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 See, that's the innocence that we need.
Yeah.
We have these outside forces that are telling us the should be's and these, like you said, who says this and who says that, all the days. And then we put that on ourselves, and that's where the shame comes in. Little babies aren't shamed.
No.
They don't even know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I feel like it's definitely learned, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why we appreciate babies too, because if a baby wants to stare you up and down, a baby's gonna stare you up and down. Okay.
And they're brutally honest.
Yes. If a baby doesn't want you to hold it, the baby gonna snatch back. You know what I'm saying? Like, the baby is not trying to appease any of our emotions, right? The baby is who it is. Like, I think we get so excited by babies because we probably want to be one. We emulate them. We emulate their honesty. You know, that's why we laugh and all that. But yeah, the honesty, yes.
They're
and
brutally honest.
Yeah. So Tony said, yes, Jordan. And then she says, our kids are our greatest teachers. I absolutely believe that. She also says, yes, Tameka Jordan. And then my cousin up there said, beautiful. All right, so next question. We already touched on this, but we're gonna, again, make it explicit. Have you ever felt guilty or ashamed about something, and provide some examples of that? So you guys have, we're just going to provide more examples. Yeah. Areas where you have felt guilt or shame, and then just some concrete examples of things that you may have felt guilty or ashamed of.
I used to, not anymore in age, but I used to be ashamed that I didn't finish college. Because everyone around me, what college did you go to? Why didn't you go to college? Why didn't you? So that used to kill me. I was so, and I had to apologize to my husband because when we were in the house, he put up his degrees, and I asked him to take them down because I didn't have any. Is that not? That was terrible, wasn't it? I know. I did apologize, and he has all his stuff up now, and because I'm in a better place. That was my insecurity, but it was because of everyone else coming at me and asking me all these questions that led to more shame and guilt because I didn't have the money. I didn't have the know-how. I didn't understand the process. You know, we were having troubles at home that I couldn't explain, that I felt like I couldn't leave the house. All of that. And I'm just like, it was just one thing after the other, all from that simple question of, where'd you go to school? And it just made me feel so ashamed. So I wouldn't really say a guilt, because I still felt like I was doing the best that I knew how to do, but I definitely was ashamed. But now, being a better person, being older, and knowing that school wasn't for me anyway, I'm not anymore. But that got me for years. Years.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah,
something that you felt guilt or shame?
Yeah, for going to school when I first moved to from the country to Northern Virginia. That was just a standard question. Oh, what school did you go to? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. And so it really bothered me until I had to in my job. I had to get it in order to go to the next level. But then once I got it, it was like, I mean, nothing changed with the pay. You know what I'm saying? So then I think that's kind of when I dropped that. But it was a thing that really bothered me. I didn't even want to be a part of those conversations. And people were talking about food and things of that nature. And something you had already shared, Ayisha, about like my weight gain. I think that's the one thing like internally for me that I deal with and I struggle with a lot, doing better in that area as far as when I look at myself. Those things. And like guilty is just like me not doing what I know that I need to do. Yeah, that's mostly it.
Mine was, and I'm gonna try to do this without tears. I was the first person in college in my group to have a baby. So I got a lot of baby daddy issues. And I was told over and over again by several people that I was never going to amount to anything. And I was just going to be a welfare mom.
Oh, my God.
And it stuck with me for a long time. So because I have 5 children. And I always wanted a large family. You know, I only have one biological sibling, which is a brother, and we're just 13 months apart. So when I was little, I would say, when I get older, I want 5 children, and I want 3 boys and 2 girls, and I want it to go boy, girl, boy, girl, boy. And that's what I got.
Wow.
But raising them, I was unmarried until I had my last child. And I was on welfare and food stamps and had Section 8 housing. And I had friends who would just tell me all the time, you're not going to be anything. Well, they weren't friends at that time and hence have gotten an apology, but it was just always, I was led to, anytime that anybody found out I was pregnant, it was like again, you know, and it grinds my gears, whether a woman has several baby daddies or whether she just has one, when people make comments. So I always stand up for them because I'll go back to scripture where it says, blessed is the man whose quiver is full. You know, which means there's a lot of blessing when you have a large family, because that's a big thing, especially in our African traditions, to have a large family to carry on the lineage, you know. But I was made to feel like I was never going to amount to anything, because I did go to college, but I only went to college to get out of my mom's house. I didn't go to college because I wanted to be in school. So that was my way out. And when I found out I was pregnant, that was my way out of college. So I don't have any guilt of not finishing school. I had the guilt. And then I had to really, it took a lot of therapy, a lot of speaking to myself, a lot of counseling. And my children are one of my greatest blessings, because although we have our challenges in life, they are all doing something great. So that the one person that used to say it all the time, hence has now since sort of apologized by doing things, but I will never, like I stand on it today. These are my blessings. This is my lineage. And they will carry on my name and do great things. And they're doing it now. They started doing it in school, but I was too busy being a mom to see that. So now that they're grown, I can appreciate it more. So if I hear people to this day talking about anybody that's pregnant, whether she is unwed or whether she's married or whatever, I will defend them to the T, to a fault. I will stand on it, and they like I will become almost violent, because I'm like, how dare you? Because you don't know who this child is in this woman's womb.
Right.
You know what they're called to do when they get here. So when I was having them, I had some guilt, but thanking God that they're here and thanking God that they're healthy and successful. So you know, people can be very, very, very cruel, you know, and usually when people are cruel, it is because they are dealing with issues within themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I will say, again, I think I'd be cheating sometime because I piggyback off of everybody, but it is my truth, because I'll think I'm going to say something. I was like, oh my gosh, that just brought up something else, which is really why I like to have 4 people on here, because the perspectives helps pull out things that maybe you don't know exist, or maybe things that you have pushed down. So you guys just talking is like bringing up more stuff that I didn't even realize that I may have been like felt guilty or ashamed of. But I do realize the thing that I feel most guilty about often is if I feel like I have hurt somebody else. So when I think back when those thoughts start coming up, if I feel like I have mistreated somebody, even if it's something that I forgot, like if I was supposed to meet up with a friend, or we were supposed to have a conference call, and I don't come through, I feel guilty, because I always want like my friends and those dear to me, and even those who are not, to know that like I really care and you do mean something to me. So if I forget and it slips, then I really am hard on myself about that. So or if I've been in a relationship with somebody and I didn't feel like I treated that person the way they should have been treated, that I get guilt about that. But the things that I feel like I have felt shamed of not making a certain amount of money that I thought I would be making by a certain age. Like I didn't want to expose the amount of money that I made. I'd be proud of other people, but I'm just like, gosh, I should be at this point in my life. Why am I not making this certain amount of money? So money has been a thing that I have been ashamed of. Another thing that I have felt shamed for, and I know I keep saying this over and over and over again, but it is something that I deal with off and on. So when I was growing up, I was a very skinny child. Then puberty hit and I became very shapely. So I was still small, but I mean, them boobs came, the butt came, like everything came, and it came fast. So like by the time I was 11, I had everything. And I wasn't ashamed of it because I didn't know what it meant, but my parents' protection made me ashamed of it. You can't wear that. You got to wear a bigger shirt. You got to, you know what I'm saying? And so I started becoming ashamed of my body at that. I thought I could wear everything else everybody else wore, but then I was told very quickly, you can't. So it brought attention to me about certain body parts. And I didn't interpret that as like I was developing. I interpreted that as I was fat and ugly, because they kept trying, like their idea of protecting me was to cover me. So that made me feel that maybe I wasn't attractive. And so I have had issues with weight gain, and the times it seemed like where I was very celebrated was when I lost weight. And oh my gosh, girl, you look good. You do what you doing? I felt celebrated then. And so it was like I kept using that as my compass to be loved, to be fulfilled, to be happy. And was that the truth? No, that wasn't the truth. People loved me anyways. But what I told myself was that I was loved more and that I deserved more when I was smaller because of the way that I was celebrated. And so I have gone through periods, even in my adult life, where I have hidden because I gained weight. Because I didn't want to hear, oh my gosh, you gained weight. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't. And so I hid. And not only did I hide, but I ate more, during those periods. And I didn't feel good about it either. So then I felt guilty. You know what I'm saying? So it was like this constant cycle. But again, having discussions like this and helping me process it, and me also helping other people process it, is helping me deal with my own stuff. But yeah, that shame has gone and continues to go. Well, you know what? Cancel and delete. It has gone. I'm going to claim that it has gone. But the last one, I know I'm running my mouth, but I just feel led because this is going to be a topic. Me being a young girl, and I feel like I've kind of brought it up before, being a young good girl, because I'm gonna keep saying that about myself, a young good girl with good grades, who followed everything pretty much that my parents said do. I had sex at a very young age, and I was really ashamed of that for a really, really long time, because it was like always connected to being fast. You're not going to be anything. Only certain girls look like this. Well, whatever they said it looked like, I wasn't the prototype for that. So I kept like mixing myself with that image of whatever they said that looked like. But yeah, I did. I was young. I was too young, you know, to have given myself away at that younger bit, because I didn't understand really what was going on. That's why I'm gonna say I was too young. But I was very, very ashamed of that. So like if the topic would come up, I would like try to avoid it, or I would lie and say that I was a little bit older than what I was but now, you know, my goal is to free people. So I don't mind sharing that. Like, you know, I'm very transparent when it comes to like my students, my nieces, my friends, children. I'm like, I'm about to give it to y'all because somebody didn't tell it to me and they made me feel shamed about it. I don't want you to feel what I felt. So, yeah, I did feel shamed about that for a really long time. So again, I know I kind of went long with it, but those are the things. I'm hoping that somebody is listening to this and getting free right now from any shame or guilt that you may have, because that thing will have us feeling like we got anchors hooked on us for the rest of our lives. And that is no. All right, so the next one is, what do you think happens when we don't deal with our guilt and shame? How does that show up in our lives?
Triggers, trauma, acting out, you know, watching, you know, I can tell, like I have a coworker, me and another coworker will watch her, and her answers or her statements would be so abrasive and to anything that we would say. And I said to her, I said, you know what, that's trauma. I said, that's childhood trauma. Those are trauma responses. That's what it looks like when it's not dealt with, you know. And it's sad when you watch, you know, like as a minister and you counsel people, it's sad when you see grown women who are in their 40s and their 50s and even in their 70s who are, and we if we go back and look at our own relatives when all the women were together and how they behaved, and understand why they do what they do, you know, to watch them throw tantrums and act out because of trauma from whatever has happened in the past, and they didn't deal with it. Because sometimes you can't help what happens to you, but dealing with that is your job. We see it all over social media, you know, dealing with your trauma, dealing with this, dealing with that. That's how you can recognize who's really and truly on this journey of healing.
Yes. All right. Anybody else want to add on? Yes, it does. It triggers. Absolutely. How else do you think shame and guilt shows up, Yolanda or Tara?
It could show up physically, like weight gain, weight loss. You know, like Ms. Tameka already said, people's behavior, disease, like physical ailments. Yeah, and like for me too, I think for some of mine, it would attract certain people to me. And I'm like, you're funny. You're funny because I see it. You're funny. So then I know it's something like subconsciously that I need to deal with because it's attracting things that I don't want. And I'm like, where is this hiding at? So for me, it'll be in those areas, how it manifests.
Yeah, good. And I want to piggyback because that is one thing I've said before to myself. I can look back on relationships, and I'm talking about with a significant other or even friendship, and I can tell you that where I was emotionally at that time based off of who I was with or who I decided to associate myself with, what I was feeling, those areas of high self-esteem, high self-worth, that those friendships and that relationship was very, very symbolic of that. But those times where I was feeling like real yucky about myself and real crunchy about myself, that relationship exposed itself, and that was a manifestation. If you ever read Beloved, she is definitely a manifestation of like things that weren't dealt with in the family. that's how I felt like those relationships, job opportunities, all that kind of stuff showed up. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I was I didn't date for a long time after I got divorced. That was another thing that I was going to say. That's another thing that I felt ashamed of, getting divorced. So now as a divorced woman and having to say I'm divorced, that was something that I was ashamed of for a minute. So yeah, I took time so that I could heal, so that I wasn't attracting areas where I needed to heal, you know? So thank you for bringing that up. All right, sorry, Tara.
I'm thinking like lashing out or and doing the opposite. Like, is there something that you feel guilty about? You're going to make the other person feel worse
Yes.
to make yourself feel better.
Yes.
I think that happens a lot.
Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree. I was thinking about the thing that flashed me over me was, you know, there was like, I don't know about y'all's high schools or middle school, but it seemed like there was always a group of girls that was like the mean girls in school, and they were the fighters, and those are the ones you didn't mess with. Now when I think about it, and I'm like, were they dealing with guilt and shame? You know what I'm saying? Like, what was going on there that made them be that crew? You know? And I know I always try to stay away from them, or befriend them, you know, in some type of way. But yeah, I do wonder, were they dealing with guilt and shame at that time that made them act out? So yeah, very good. But yes, you know, we're reading a book called Perfect Peace. And I feel like in that book, Imogene's limp, and you know how her limp, and then Gus's hip problem, even though, you know, there's other occurrences, I think that's as a result of guilt and shame. So what Yolanda said, the way these different things show up in our body, I do feel like cancer it occurs as a result of shame and guilt, things that are not dealt with. Yeah, I feel like it will manifest its way that way. Different parts of our body numbing, hair falling out, face breakouts. So I feel like it could present itself definitely physically in different ways. And then of course, when we deal with it, you know, there's many stories where people have said that they became healed and it wasn't even understood how it happened. You know, the doctor said otherwise, but it was as a result of emotional healing. So yes, I
know. I've I had them removed, but I had fibroids.
Ooh.
So my journey to my journey to figure out why and how to get rid of them and all like that, I went to a wellness. So we did the yoni steam, and she also did like a reading.
Ooh.
And the whole thing, for many people, your sacral, in your sacral chakra, and all that is just riddled with guilt and shame and regret and all these other negative emotions that you have, and that's how they manifest themselves.
Yes, absolutely. I didn't even think about regret, but yes, regret is definitely a big one. And I keep bringing up, you know, different personal instances, but I know just today I had an aunt who passed away, and definitely unexpected. And my father called me like gut wrenching crying. I'm not used to seeing my dad that way. And he is like processing a lot of emotions, but it made me think about like a number of deaths that have occurred in my life, in times where I have felt guilty for not having spent enough time with that person. You know what I'm saying? Where I had opportunity, like the person may have reached out, or I could have went out to a lunch, or I could have made a phone call, or just something. But again, those guilty situations, what we talked about earlier, or what I used as a moral compass, to not do that again, to not take it for granted that this person is always going to be here. So, but regret with death was a big recurrent one for me. Just not feeling like I didn't do enough. I didn't give the person their flowers while they were here. I didn't push them to go to a doctor's appointment. I didn't, if I knew I could physically do something to help them, I didn't do it. I thought I had more time, and so, yeah, just hear my dad. I know my dad in this instance, he did everything that he could, but just to hear him sobbing was just a reminder of like, don't take things for granted. You don't want to have this. You don't want to have the regret, even if it's just being there for him, So, yeah. All right. So the last one is, what are some ways that you have overcome shame or guilt? Or what are some other ways that others can? Like, how do we restore after having experienced this?
Definitely, I had to go to therapy. I had to. I spent years. I was telling somebody the other day. I spent years in therapy. So now it's a PRN or as needed basis, because it started as such a young age, and I had to deliberately. First of all, I had to want to be changed to do better, because a lot of times, and I tell people that come to me for therapy or counseling, I don't care how much money you pay me. If you don't want to change, I'm not taking you. I can give you a list of other people, but these people are going to say the same thing. So when you have to be willing, because you want better, you want to feel better.
Yeah.
And I had to train myself to really say, I want to feel better, because feeling better looked different. Even now, since 2023 has come in, I've experienced some beautiful things, but they look different, and it was scary for me because of the unknown. So I would definitely recommend therapy. A lot of times we don't like therapy. I saw on one of your podcasts, somebody said, somebody had made a comment, therapists just want to take your money. And somebody said, no, baby, you need to find another therapist.
That's right.
And that's the biggest thing. So when people call, like I have a couple of people that I love dearly and they're friends, but I tell them all the time, if you're going to call me and complain and I told you to go to therapy and you haven't gone to therapy yet, then we're going to change the subject. So that was the biggest thing for me. And in finding the therapist, I had to go through a few of them to get the one that was for me.
Yeah.
So that was my thing, and wanting to heal, wanting to get away from that,
Yeah.
So when Yolanda said in the beginning, basically that shame and that guilt is generational, immediately I started thinking about my grandchildren, because I'm like, and it's so funny because I sent a message. We have a group chat with the children, and I said, it is our goal. Everybody's on this healing journey. It is our goal to give each other space, but to break these curses. That's just it, period. So that helped me a lot. So thank you, Yolanda. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other ways that you restore, or how do we overcome, those feelings of guilt and shame?
For me, first, because I do the guilt and the shame separately. So for me, shame is being more secure to rid myself of feeling shame. Being more secure in what I do, how I am, who I am, because like I said, for me, shame is an outside force. So if I know I'm right, if I know I'm good, if I know my intentions, and if I know, then the shame should less. And I say it won't exist, but it shouldn't hit me as hard.
Yeah.
Because that's their opinion and what they think them. So them versus me. For guilt, that's a hard one. And for guilt for me, it's just, I honestly, have to give myself grace, and I just have to tell myself that I did the best that I knew to do at that moment. I know better now, but I can't go backwards. So as long as and it's hard, oh God, I'm about to cry. It's hard because you can't go backwards, and you want to go backwards, and that's the guilt.
Yeah.
But you just have to give yourself that grace and say, I did the best I could at that moment.
Yeah.
It's like you can do.
The best you could with the tools you had and the knowledge you had, too.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I thank you so much for that one. Yes.
Yes, sisters. Let me see. So for me, if I did not have the spiritual journey with Jonathan L. Harris being my coach, no. It would be completely.
That's why life coaches are important. I'm interjecting for a second. That's why seeking outside help really is important. That is actually all of our connection here. I'm sorry, Yolanda. Keep going.
No. I'm sorry. Delay. A therapist is still important. I just have to find one that can deal with all of my levels.
Yeah.
Deep level. But for me, it's doing the work. Like for some of the things that I was shameful of, like how I grew up. Like even like my dad, I was always ashamed because my dad would be that one in the middle of the parties, drunk and dancing, but literally having a good time. So now I embrace that by going and joining him in the middle of the party.
Yeah. That's a good way to do it. Yes.
Yes. So I've had to, and then too, like if something does come up for shame, I will sit there and unpack it. I have a lot of conversations out loud with myself. I do. And so I'm trying to unpack it to figure out like, you know, where it is, where it's happening, or, you know, I may ask about it in a coaching session or something like that. For guilt, it's an everyday struggle. It's a everyday self-talk. Like, why am I feeling this way? You know, what could I have done better? Or trying to redefine the narrative of what's good and what's bad. You know, like along all these years, we picked up, oh, this is good behavior, this is bad behavior, or you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that. And everybody have their own experience. So now I'm trying to like create a new narrative around that to give myself some grace. Like Miss Tara said, I'm giving myself grace in that. But a lot of, for me, it's awareness and dealing with it at that time. Because a lot of times I can't move forward. I be stuck and I can't get anything done. So I just sit there and try to process it to move forward. Yeah.
No, I love all that. Recreating the narrative. Like you said, giving yourself self-compassion, Tara, all of that is important. Tameka, with the therapist, seeking outside help. I think we need it all. Journaling, I think is good. A trusted, healthy friend. Again, I keep saying that because sometimes we go to people who are thinking, you know, but then you know the other one who will actually uplift you. So going to the healthy people who will help bring you out. Going outside, going for walks, exercise. Like, there's so many different tools that we can use to help, you know, like instead just pull ourselves out of it. And like you said, I'll also piggybacking off of Yolanda, if it has to deal with somebody else, knowing that's their stuff, not yours. Because there's times in my life where I've had family members who were embarrassing, and I made that my embarrassment. No, that was them. Right. You know, like, and I've had people who come up to me and said, you know, were you embarrassed when so-and-so did this? And I was like, no, because I didn't do it. You know, so no, I'm not embarrassed. Now, will I allow, now if somebody's in my presence and I love you, then if I can help in that moment, then like I will to stay. If I know that person's gonna be embarrassed later, but if that's just who the person is, then I'm gonna let that person just be, you know. But like I said, if I feel like it's gonna hurt that person later, like, why didn't you help me? Why didn't you? Then yeah, I'm gonna jump right in. But yeah, I started removing myself from that. Like, no, I wasn't embarrassed because that wasn't me. And then if it's something that I felt guilty about, then I deal with it. So if I have moments where I feel guilty about eating a box of cookies, then guess what? The next day I'm not going to eat them. You know what I'm saying? That I will get something that is going to help, and I'm not going to keep repeating it so I can keep feeling guilty. I will try to figure out why I did it in the first place. If I just give myself a break and say, hey, I was just having fun, or just eat something different. But I try to like handle it in that particular moment. The shame, like I said, shame is a little bit heavier though. So that is something, you know, like I said, when I use, we have to use very intentional tools for that one. All right, anybody want to leave anything? We are finished. We made it through this
I do, because Yolanda touched on it, but I feel like because for anybody who sees this that is older, and when I say older, like 40 and older, do not cut out the younger generation. Because I want to piggyback on what Yolanda said. Jonathan L. Harris, I'm old enough to be his mother. And this young man has changed. Well, he not only changed my life, he saved my life. The younger generation has something special. And the older generation, a lot of times we want to X them out, especially in the South. That's just a chap. And that chap ain't got nothing for me. That's a lie. Yeah. You're an older person who's stuck in your ways, and you're ignorant, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just you've been taught. That young generation, those what is it, the Gen Zs and the Gen Xs, y'all got something special. Yeah. And the thing is, you have to be teachable. Yeah. Because if you're miserable, how is life working for you? You know, I'll take the youngest. My kids, you know, they range from 21 to 33. They have taught me so much. You know, so, and coming from that place, you're just a child. Children should be seen and not heard. What? They helped me so much. And Jonathan, man, y'all missing out. Yeah. Y'all missing out. You walking around miserable. Oh, one of my sisters, one of my big sisters, I don't have any blood sisters, but I have a lot of sisters, you know, that I consider sisters. She's in her 60s. She said, I will not die an old and bitter woman. Yeah. Oh no, I know that's me. I refuse. So for the people that are older and you're watching this because you feel like you're killing time or you sneaking to see if you can get a nugget, that's my nugget for you. Because you missing out. The older people, they ain't got it. So you got to come to this younger generation and bypass all that, what you call that bippity boppity music and all that other stuff, and listen to them because they making it happen. Yeah. You know, well, yeah. Let me just one more thing. No, and I'm going to piggyback, but not piggyback. I say don't discount any source. Right. So I'm going to say young people, but I'm going to say if there's a homeless man or woman that has a message for you, if there is somebody who is in prison who has a message for you, if there is somebody who is the age of Jordan. How old is Jordan, Yolanda? 8. If there's somebody the age of Jordan, because I've had kids call me, I'll say, well, you don't do that. And then you're like, oh, I know. You know what? You're right. I just got to get it together. So, you know, I have a goddaughter who is Brookie. She is very blunt, but Brookie is a messenger. Yes. She is a messenger. So I say don't discount any of the messengers. Somebody who comes up to you who is inebriated, who is dark, dirty, down, drunk, they may be the one that have the message. So yes, I'm going to say the young people, but I'm also going to just, whatever source it comes from, be open to it as a vessel. That could be the very thing that delivers you. So I take it all. Yeah. So no, I do. I'm glad that you brought that up because sometimes we do discount people, and that should not be. Listen, I'd rather get a message from a drunk person because they're speaking the truth than I would from some of them sitting in the pulpit. Yes. Yes, very good. So please tell us, Tara, where we can find you. Yes. I do it to everybody. I'm not just calling you out for your services, massage or Reiki. Right now I am practicing at a Shakti Wellness, but DM me at my Instagram, which was Tara. Your information in there, yes. All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tameka, how do we contact you?
I have 2 Instagram pages. One is Overzealous 1969, and then I have T.J.Ministries 2019, I think it is. And then I have Facebook as Tameka Renee, and then I have TikTok. It's TTEA WIT WIT Tameka.
Okay.
So you can find me on any of those. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. And Tameka does daily midday messages.
Oh yeah.
All right. And then Yolanda, I'm always going to have you say, how can we find you?
Oh, okay. On Instagram, it's Yolanda Psychic Medium. And if you would like to book a reading, you can go to my website, yolandajstone.com.
All right. And you can find me for spiritual messages and spiritual life coaching at Ayisha Zakia BeautifulLife.com. But it's Ayisha Zakia Beautiful Life on all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. But thank you so much, lady. Thank you so much for your transparency. I definitely felt a shift in this one. And you guys have an amazing evening.
You too.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.